The morning of June 12, 2025, began with a scream. It was a sound that sliced through the usual hum of the impoverished district. Old brick buildings, weary from time, seemed to hold their breath. The scream came from a narrow alley, a place where shadows lingered long after the sun had risen. Mr. Silas Croft, a man whose face was a map of worry, discovered the source. His neighbor, a young man named Leo, lay still on the grimy pavement. A single dark stain was spreading across his simple shirt. Leo was gone. The life had been stolen from him in this forgotten corner of the city. Mr. Croft's hands trembled as he called the police. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drum of fear and grief. He had known Leo since he was a boy. He was a good lad, always ready with a smile, always offering to carry groceries for the elderly residents. Now, that kindness was extinguished. The alley felt colder, darker. Mr. Croft knew who was responsible. He had seen the arguments, he had heard the threats. The name was a poison on his lips. A man named Razor, a brute who haunted these streets like a malevolent ghost. Soon, the area was cordoned off with yellow tape. Uniformed officers moved with a practiced, almost bored efficiency. They took notes. They spoke into their radios. They treated the scene with a detachment that chilled Mr. Croft to the bone. To them it was just another body, another statistic in a neighborhood that produced them too often. But to Mr. Croft this was not a statistic. This was Leo. This was a profound injustice crying out from the cold, hard ground. He watched the officers work, a knot of dread tightening in his stomach. He feared this would be just another file, another unsolved case in a city full of them. He approached a young officer, his voice barely a whisper. He told him about Razor. He described the man's reputation for violence, his unpredictable rage fueled by a desperate addiction to drugs. The officer listened, nodding slowly, his expression unreadable. He wrote the name down in his small notebook, but Mr. Croft saw no urgency in his eyes. There was no spark of determination. It felt like a formality, a procedure to be followed without any real hope of a resolution. Mr. Croft felt a wave of helplessness wash over him. He had done his duty as a citizen, but he was merely a small voice against a tide of indifference. Days turned into a week. The yellow tape disappeared. The stain in the alley faded under the relentless sun and the passing of indifferent feet. For Mr. Croft, however, the memory did not fade. He visited the local police precinct. His worn hat held tightly in his hands. He asked for an update. He was told to be patient. The investigation was ongoing, they said. But the words felt hollow, like a pre-written script for placating the public. He mentioned Razor again, his voice firm this time. He insisted that they look into this man, a known menace who terrorized the community without fear of consequence. The desk sergeant sighed, a sound of weary resignation. He explained that they needed more than just a name. They needed evidence. They needed witnesses who were willing to testify. But in this neighborhood, fear was a currency more powerful than civic duty. People locked their doors and their mouths. To speak against Razor was to invite his wrath, a risk no one was willing to take. Mr. Croft understood their silence, but it did not lessen his frustration. It felt like a wall, solid and insurmountable. Justice, it seemed, was a luxury this part of the city could not afford. Mr. Croft saw Razor on the street a few days later. The man swaggered with an unnerving confidence, his eyes wild and unfocused. He looked gaunt, his skin pale, but he carried himself with the arrogance of someone who believed he was above the law. He met Mr. Croft's gaze and offered a slow, chilling smile. It was not a gesture of friendliness, it was a taunt. It was a silent acknowledgement of the crime, a dare to do something about it. In that moment Mr. Croft felt a cold fury. The killer was walking free, while a good young man lay in his grave. He returned to the precinct, his anger giving him strength. He demanded to speak with someone in charge. He recounted the encounter, the blatant intimidation. He was finally granted a meeting with a detective, but the conversation was disheartening. The detective listened politely, but explained the legal hurdles. Razor's reputation was not evidence. A menacing smile was not a confession. Without a weapon, a witness, or a confession, their hands were tied. Mr. Croft left the station feeling utterly defeated. The system he had been taught to trust had failed him, and it had failed Leo completely. The case file for Leo's murder landed on the desk of Detective Miles Corbin. He was a man of quiet observation, his mind a sharp instrument behind a calm professional demeanor. He was not like the other officers. He saw more than just a file number, he saw a puzzle waiting to be solved. He read Mr. Croft's repeated statements with great interest, He noted the name, Razor. He knew the type well, violent, unpredictable, and ruled by a desperate need for the next fix. Such men were often careless, but they were also cornered animals, dangerous when confronted directly. Detective Corbin decided a different approach was needed. A direct raid on Razor's known apartment would be loud and messy. It would likely yield nothing but a small stash of drugs, and Razor would be back on the streets in a day. The murder weapon would be long gone. No, a direct confrontation was a fool's errand. Corbin preferred a game of chess to a brawl. He began by studying Razor from a distance. He learned his routines, his hangouts, the desperate rhythm of his addiction. He saw the paranoia in his eyes, the way he constantly looked over his shoulder. Razor's addiction was his weakness. It was the key. Corbin knew that men like Razor were not just violent, they were slaves to their habit. Their world shrank to a single, obsessive focus. This focus made them predictable. Corbin observed Razor's increasingly agitated state. He was getting desperate. His usual suppliers were likely wary of him now that he had brought the heat of a murder investigation to the neighborhood. His swagger was gone, replaced by a twitchy, nervous energy. He was a predator, yes, but he was also becoming prey to his own demons. Corbin devised a plan. It was subtle, intelligent, and designed to exploit Razor's specific psychology. He wouldn't use force, not at first. He would use bait. He understood that a desperate addict is not thinking about legal consequences, they are thinking only of their immediate, overwhelming need. The detective knew he had to get inside Razor's apartment to search for any clue, any small piece of evidence that might have been overlooked. To do that, he needed to get Razor out of the picture willingly and without a fight. The trap was about to be set. Detective Corbin arranged for an undercover officer to pose as a new dealer in the area. This dealer let it be known that he had a superior product, but he was cautious. He wouldn't meet just anywhere. He set up a specific meeting point far from Razor's apartment at a precise time. The bait was a promise of a free sample, an offer too tempting for a desperate man to refuse. As Corbin anticipated, Razor took the bait. He left his squalid apartment, his mind fixated on one thing only, completely unaware that he was walking into a carefully orchestrated maneuver designed by the detective. With Razor gone, Corbin and a small, quiet team entered the apartment. They had a legal warrant, secured on the basis of credible intelligence. The place was a chaotic mess, a testament to a life in disarray. They searched methodically, meticulously. Corbin ignored the obvious drug paraphernalia. He was looking for something else. Under a loose floorboard, hidden beneath a pile of dirty clothes, he found it. It was a knife. And on its handle, a small, dark brown stain that was almost invisible to the naked eye. It was not a confession, but it was a powerful piece of physical evidence. When Razor arrived at the meeting point, he found not a dealer, but a team of uniformed officers waiting for him. His drug-addled mind was slow to react. He was confused, then angry. But before his rage could erupt into violence, Detective Corbin stepped forward. He spoke calmly, his voice even. He did not threaten or shout. He simply held up the evidence bag containing the knife. "We know what you did, Razor," he said softly. Seeing the weapon, Razor's fight instantly evaporated. The arrogance drained from his face, replaced by the stark, hollow look of defeat. He was disarmed not by force, but by the quiet presentation of the truth. Despite the clever police work and the arrest, the path to justice remained fraught with obstacles. The district attorney reviewed the case. The knife was a strong piece of evidence, but Razor's lawyer argued it was circumstantial. There were no fingerprints, and the witness, Mr. Croft, had only seen arguments, not the murder itself. Citing a lack of definitive proof to guarantee a conviction, the prosecutor's office declined to press murder charges, offering a plea deal for a lesser weapons possession charge instead. Mr. Croft was devastated. Leo's killer would not face true justice. Holding back tears of frustration, he vowed not to give up. He would appeal to a higher court. He would be Leo's voice no matter how long it took.